Hello, top of the morning, Timmy and Crystal.
Hi.
How you doing today?
We're Scott Wilson tonight.
Jeremy, something's different about you. Your voice has changed.
Yeah, I know.
What's up with that?
It's a very bad impression of an Irish accent.
Yes, it was.
That was all I had. It was all I had to start off with.
Stick to your day job, Jeremy. Stick to your day job.
Sometimes I don't even want to do that. It was a rough day today. I was throwing bags of mix today, and my first order of the day was at about 7 o'clock this morning, and it was 9,000 pounds I had to throw. Yeah, that's the way to start your day, and it did not stop.
I used to do it all the time for 4 years.
Yep. Yeah, well, you were throwing all of that into the mixer. I was throwing all that onto pallets.
Yeah.
Oh. Well,
don't quit your job to go on tour with an Irish accent.
I will try not to.
Okay, thank you.
I will try not to. So how you guys doing today?
We're doing good. We're just filling in for Scotty. He's doing some family stuff tonight, and unfortunately couldn't have a Wi-Fi signal where he was. So we're filling in for Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, he had.
Then we all know family is the most important thing.
Well, you guys have any announcements to make today?
Our daughter graduates next weekend from high school.
Yeah, so we're going to be busy next week.
Yeah, next week's going to be a really busy week.
Yeah, and I just got the invitation today in the mail, so thank you.
Yeah. We want you guys to come out and enjoy some food and get to celebrate with us.
And FYI, it's a haunted location.
So I've heard. Well, what was I throwing? I was throwing 50-pound bags of powder, and I probably threw. Had to be close to 30,000 pounds today. So I'm a little wore out.
Just think of what it was like back when we were making 900,000 gallons of mix a week.
Oh man,
30 to 40 batches a shift.
I'll tell you what. After 4 years, if I had to do that, I'd probably be looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger then. Yeah. Yeah. So I am a little tired from that. Also, today is my mom's birthday. She's been gone for.
Happy birthday to your mom.
Absolutely.
She's been gone for 13 years. And today, well, I don't really want to reveal her age. She'd probably still get mad at me if I did that.
She'll come and haunt you. Oh, we do have another announcement. Maddie, our oldest, turns 21 on Tuesday.
Yes.
Ooh, how could you forget your daughter's birthday?
I didn't forget it, but it's her 21st birthday. I'm trying to think of not having to
We're
week.
trying to forget it. How's that? It's 21.
Yeah, because every year she gets older, you get older.
No, I don't.
Oh, no.
I'm still 29.
It's just 21, so she's legal to go out and do things that we don't want her to go do.
Well, yeah, you may have a problem there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh.
Anyways, let's not hold our guest in the green room for too long.
Yeah, I know. This is going to be a very exciting episode, guys. We have an OG with us tonight. And
I know, like I said when we met him, I've seen him. He hasn't seen me, but I was watching.
Yep. So for those of you guys who may not know, OG is Original Gangsta, and this guy is a true original. So let's
He's
bring
an
him on.
OGH, Original Ghost Hunter.
There you go. That works. So
Or OGI. Sorry, Jenny. I know you're in the chats. I've seen you, and I know you don't like people saying it's a hunter. So Original Ghost Investigator. How about that?
Hi, Jennifer. Hi, everybody, by the way.
So let's bring him on all the way from Ireland, Mr. Barry Fitzgerald.
Hi, folks.
Hello.
Thank you.
How you doing
Oh, it's our
tonight?
pleasure.
Or this morning?
I'm
Good
good.
morning.
I'm good. Well, yes, it's just gone midnight here. But I must say, Jeremy, that Irish accent was uncanny. I thought I was speaking to my neighbour.
Don't
I
give
thought I
him a
was doing
bigger
a
head than
terrible
he
job.
needs, please.
I don't know. It's not something that I try very often, but
You
I
are
don't
a
know.
natural. A natural.
Thank you very much, sir. That wasn't Irish. Oh,
I only talk Irish after I've been talking to Jenny for a few hours on video chat, and then I get off, and Tim's like, "You're not Irish, you're American. Shut up."
Yeah, it's one of those accents.
yeah. So I'm still finishing up my supper because I had almost no time to get prepared for this one here. Um, so Barry, for those in the audience who may not recognize you, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell them who you are and what you've done.
Well, I would reckon that outside of my accent, my appearance has changed drastically since the hairline decided to disappear, and of course I went undercover with the beard, and so that all added to my to the man of mystery appearance. But for those that don't recognize the accent, um, I appeared on Ghost Hunters and Ghost Hunters International. In fact, I've done all 50 something episodes of GHI where we traveled the world looking for paranormal activity on the Sci-Fi Channel, and I also done a few appearances as well on Josh Gates's show, Destination Truth. So we did that as well. Yeah, so that's what I did. I'm an author on paranormal topics, including ufology, cryptozoology, and of course the paranormal itself. And I have been involved in the field now over 30 years, and I have just sent a new book to the publishers called Deceptions of Gods and Men, and that looks at stripping away the mask and revealing the identity of the beings that are interacting with us from beyond the veil. And I'm hastily because my back is against the wall. I'm hastily working on the next project, which is another book called The Fruits of the Gods, which is looking at this possible link to a fruit that was consumed near the summer solstice, and was something brought here by the Neolithic Irish some 6,000 years ago that allowed us to contact the gods beyond the veil. So that's something that I'm working with now, and it's really turning into something, and it's gone to places that I never even thought of going, because potentially what I'm looking at here is revealing the identity of the Tree of Knowledge from the biblical Tree of Knowledge, which is I would never have thought that's where I was going with this, but the evidence, I got to follow the evidence, and it's certainly very revealing. So I'm looking forward to finishing that one.
It's awesome.
Wow.
I can't imagine the Tree of Knowledge being able to, acknowledge its origins or find it. Finding it would be so amazing.
Yeah, and going back into the we get clues of its identity within the Akkadian wall art within the Near East and or Babylonia and things like that. So leading from that and understanding who was building the stoneworks here in Ireland 6,000-7,000 years ago, we're seeing a lineage back, and that's what I'm following. And I'm just in the process now of within the next month of securing some of the fruit, and I have a laboratory ready to run the tests So it's all exciting, and it really is. It's a race to the summer solstice because the summer solstice is involved with this, the old gods, and it really is a fascinating journey.
Yeah, the summer solstice from my, I guess you'd call it research. The summer solstice played a big part in the Gaelic traditions and things.
Oh, yeah.
Summer solstice, winter solstice were all huge part of the way they worship. So
absolutely, and it all ties in with timing, and that's something that I say to some of the people that come across here and I meet up with, and we go on investigation. Timing is everything, and when you're dealing with these things that come through the veil, no matter what mask that they decide to put on and try and fool us, it's about the time, and sometimes we have to go to them rather than them coming to us. And I have had remarkable results going to these, whether it be cave systems, whether it be on top of lonely mountains. You have to make the effort to try and reach them, and they sometimes may take that step towards you as well. And it has been an absolutely fascinating 10 years since leaving GHI and moving into this new project of the Legend Seekers, which really delves into the mythology and folklore of Ireland, and seeing that there's more to this than actually meets the eye. And again, it's just been an absolutely amazing thing to experience.
yeah, absolutely. Folklore and legend is where one of the reasons why we started this show. That's Crystal and I's job on our podcast is history and research. I pretty much watch documentaries all the time, so I call myself an amateur historian. I just try to keep as much knowledge as I can locked away, and she's phenomenal at doing research.
Yep.
So
there are some amazing podcasts out there as well. And with you being involved in the research and mythology, may I just suggest a podcast called Bone and Sickle, and they are phenomenal in their research, especially within mythology and folklore. 10 out of 10 for these guys, and they are really up there with their work, and it's very enjoyable every month.
We'll have to look them up.
Yeah, definitely.
We watch a lot of Josh Gates' stuff.
Oh yes, Josh living for Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned Josh, he was like, "Oh,
I know him. I know him. I don't know him, but
we do love Josh."
The last time that I met Josh, bizarrely, was in an elevator in Los Angeles, and the elevator doors open, and there was Josh standing, and I said, "Josh Gates, well as I live and breathe," and we shared the elevator, and he says, I was in Ireland," and I said, "What? You were in Ireland? What were you doing?" "Well, I was looking for the leprechauns." I said, "Oh, you were you? Oh, and did you find any?" And no, the elevator was getting to my floor, and I said, "Did you find any?" And he said, he just laughed. No. I said, "What day were you there?" Monday. It was a Monday. And as the elevator reached my floor, I said to him, "You frickin' idiot. Everybody knows the leprechauns come out on a Friday. And next time you decide to come to my island, make sure you ask me for permission." And I stepped out of the elevator and turned around to watch Josh's mouth as the elevator doors closed. That was the last I saw of Josh. And to this day, I don't even think he maybe thought I was being serious, but I was just being funny. It was just sarcastic. That was all.
He seems like the kind of guy who can take a joke as well as he gives it.
Leprechauns are very popular. Is a very popular topic on this show.
Yeah, because we have our own personal leprechaun. We have a leprechaun on this show.
Yeah, our other cohorter couldn't be with us tonight, Scott Wilson. He's 5'1", about 125 pounds. So we love to tease him.
Yeah.
I call him a personal leprechaun.
Because Jeremy's fairly close to 6 foot. I'm 6'3". So we love to tease him.
God bless him.
And
we do have a leprechaun hunt here, actually.
It started innocently enough because we were talking on one of our very first shows with a team out of the Netherlands, and we were trying to talk about like the elementals, like the fairies and the trolls, and it just started coming out of my mouth, leprechauns, and then I stopped really quick. And then Scott looked at me and was like, "Did you really just say leprechauns?" I tried not to. And it just kind of snowballed from there.
It doesn't help that he wears a green top hat and a green tutu.
We do have a leprechaun hunt. Oh, I just swore. I do. We do have a leprechaun hunt here on the island every March. And that tends to happen over in County Louth, and because there was this story that developed that one of the guys that owns a bar, a pub in County Carlingford, he was on the mountain and he heard this scream, and he went up and he found the clothes, the little tiny walking stick and the shoes. Everything else that was left of the leprechaun. There was no body left, just the clothes. So the clothes ended up in a display unit within the pub, and of course anybody that goes to Carlingford Arms, they can see these leprechaun paraphernalia. And every March, well, not since 2019, but every March before then. We tended to head out onto the mountain looking for leprechauns, and never found any. But it was always a great day of fun and joking and drinking.
That's more of it, though. Like it's the camaraderie, not the finding the evidence. I mean, just with ghost hunting. Yeah, you might find some great evidence, but look at the camaraderie you get before you get that piece of evidence. The time spent with your friends and family, and the jokes and all that stuff.
And those are the best times.
Yeah.
It is.
Yes,
and it makes it worth it.
Yeah. Even on GHI, I even now, I can barely remember the cases themselves, but I do remember the times that we laughed. And that will always stick in my head about what we enjoyed when the cameras were switched off, and boy, did we have some laughs.
Exactly. I mean, you want that piece of evidence, you want that golden ticket,
of course.
What you do off screen, behind scenes, that's the meat and potatoes of it.
Yep.
Whenever we headed to film, every 20 minutes of the show that you saw took a week to film. So if there were two locations, that was 2 weeks of filming to get the footage that we needed. But every location that we were at, we got 1 day off, and I always made to try something new, to go somewhere, to see something. We're traveling the world. I wasn't going to miss that opportunity and sit and around a pool somewhere. I wanted to go and experience life. And I have to say that there was one day in I think it was Nicaragua, and our equipment was held. It was seized at the airport. So we had a week of waiting to try and get our equipment back so that we could film, and everything was going great, and the guys knew that I was up to something, and of course I'm Irish, I'm always up to something, and they said, "Can we go with you?" So I said, "Sure, yeah, if that's what you want to do." Well, the next day, we all jumped into pickup trucks and we were taken to a volcano in Nicaragua. And we climbed this volcano with boards. And we had to drag our own boards up on top of this and sandboard down the side of a volcano. Now, that was a first for me. And but I can remember looking at Joe Chen, and Joe looked as if he just wanted to be shot in the head. He was absolutely exhausted. The sweat was tripping him, and he was dragging this board behind him, and it looked like he had just lost the will to live. Enough was enough. But we laughed. Oh my God, did we laugh! And I think I was one of the first ones to head down the side of the volcano. And when I got to the bottom, about halfway up the volcano, the clouds were coming across. And Susie, she decided that she was coming down, but her board caught and started to tumble. Now, Susie was doing cartwheels down the side of this mountain, but Susie could hear me laughing at the bottom of the mountain. Oh my God, I was in hysterics, absolute hysterics. She could have broken her neck, but it was funny. It really was funny.
Wow. We do have a question real quick.
Yes, we do.
I know she's from Ireland as well.
No.
And I know it's late there.
Oh, sorry. Jenny, sorry. Jenny is from Ireland. I thought you meant Susie.
Yep.
Yes, she is my Irish sister. I'd say I'm her American sister. She's my Irish sister. So she wants to know what your favorite location is.
In Ireland.
I have to say County Sligo, where I live, is my favorite location. It's a place that is enveloped and surrounded by mountains and ocean. So I'm 5 minutes from the mountains and I'm 5 minutes from the ocean. But it has a rich vibration which is exceptionally beneficial when you're writing books and things like that. You can really get down into the subject matter. Now, in regards to a particular location, I would probably say the one in which I'm working with at the moment, which is the Island of the Dead. And that is in Donegal. Now, I've just come across two people have disappeared when they went into it, and they never came back. So I'm going to be investigating that one. But that's only come on to the cards today, and it's in Sligo. But the Island of the Dead is in Donegal, and it is one of the most frightening places that I've ever been to. All right, and considering I've been right around the world, this place really put me to my test, and that was something which I wasn't prepared for at the time. So I hope that answers Jenny's question.
Absolutely. It sounds like an exciting location. Yeah.
Yes, it does.
It's one of those places I would love to go because I'm
somewhere.
I'm kind of the thrill seeker of the group. I'm the guy who's been bungee jumping and skydiving and all that stuff. So
here's Jenny's response. I will be going.
Throw caution to the wind.
all these guys know me. I don't get scared. Something could jump out in front of me and say boo right in front of my face, and I would be, hey, okay, let's start asking questions.
Hey, sit down. We're having an interview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Nothing really scares me too much.
When GHI, when the original team came to Europe, I met them at the airport, and off we went to investigate. And between being held down at night when they were trying to sleep, these things coming into the rooms, all this bizarre stuff happening, really, some of it was very, very extreme. And I can remember at the time them saying they had never ever experienced that before. And I said to them, welcome to Europe. And Europe definitely has a lot of old stuff going on, and it can really kick you where you least expect it. And And I tend to find I have a respect for it, but understanding my interpretation of what it is now is very, very different from what it was 15, 20 years ago. And now I have a different take on it. And what I tend to find is when you're suspicious of what is coming through the veil, what is trying to communicate with you, if the signals that you're getting are not quite right, then you need to grasp those and understand that what you're communicating with is not what it says it is. And the moment that you get suspicious of that, it will hightail it out of there, because its rule is not to be found out. And I see that time and time and time again.
I'm actually a really, really religious person. So when I've actually encountered it a couple of times in my life, something that wasn't necessarily human. Mm-hmm. And those instances, then I'm normally more worried about my teammates than I am myself.
Mm-hmm.
But what we normally try to do is, or what I normally try to do is just say, look, this isn't right. We need to get out of here. Mm-hmm. And normally people will
I'm just popping stuff up now.
Oh, yeah, you are. What are you trying to do here?
I was trying to get down to Adam's comment.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Talking about the one of Stonehenge and summer solstice.
No, I've never been to. Adam has. He wants to know if Barry's ever been to Beak Cave.
Never been to Beak Cave. No.
Nope.
No, I've done a lot of world travels as well, but it was all through the United States military. I was in the Navy.
Right, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But Ireland's definitely on my bucket list of places to be.
We've been here for quite some time. Yeah, so I don't think we're going to go anywhere.
much longer than myself.
The way the weather is lately, I think we should lift our anchor, and move ourselves down towards Spain a little bit more. I think we'll be all right there.
It's been really hot around here these last couple of days.
Yeah. Last week I had my heat on, and this week I have the air on. It's like, what in the world are you doing today?
Send it over.
Yeah, I know.
Send us over some heat.
It's about
it's 84 here with a high humidity.
Yeah, 84 degree Fahrenheit. So
Adam wants to know if you were in the South.
Yes.
There's another question that was asked a lot earlier. It was actually by London.
I'd love to go someday. I'd love to go someday too. Jenny said she's going to take me to a pub. I mean, I'm always down for a pub.
Linda wants to know if I pronounce this right, is Gaelic still spoken?
You pronounced it correctly, yes. Yes, it is still spoken. There are some areas in Ireland where they just speak Gaelic. It's called the Gaeltacht area. And the road signs, everything will be in Gaelic. Good luck with that. No, it could be worse. It could be Welsh, and no one understands Welsh.
You're right.
See, this is where Jenny gets me in trouble. She says, "Yes, Guinness."
Yeah. I'm not going to want to be around you two when you do that.
Guinness and Jameson, we just fine.
There you go.
Oh, now I got to take Holly with me. Hop on the bus, Holly. It's for the world tour.
Yeah.
We always joke that we're going to go on a world tour.
Yeah, and Ireland is going to be one of our first stops.
Yep, $663 round trip tickets from Chicago O'Hara Airport to Ireland, Dublin, Ireland. I've already looked at this stuff.
She is bound and determined to go to Ireland.
That was actually a a lot of the questions I wanted to ask you were about the history of Ireland, because that's my thing, as I'm a history guy. So,
well, the Neolithic, of course, arrived here and set up camp, and they're the ones that left us the stone structures these passage chambers that predate the Great Pyramids of Giza. However, what we have discovered recently within the last year is evidence of life on the island 100,000 years ago. So that is forcing us to rewrite our history books. That someone or group of people were here on the island before or during the Ice Age. So how did they survive? What was going on? Those are questions that we haven't been able to answer yet. The university, the archaeological department here in Sligo have been exceptionally good, and they discovered several years ago some deer bone that had been cut, and that set us back 14,000 years. But now this new one has just completely thrown the baby out with the bathwater. So we're having to go back and rewrite our history books. But the island has always been for the taking. There's always been invasion forces coming in. The Beaker civilization came in, who we would know as being the Tuatha De Danann, and then we've got the Celts that were coming in, the children of Mill, and then of course the English decided to come and stay for a little while as well, but we don't talk about that one as much.
Yeah, you said that you had been doing a lot about Irish cryptozoology and stuff, and UFOlogy and cryptozoology.
Yeah.
And like here, we have like the stories of Bigfoot. We've got our own story of Loch Ness with Lake Champlain. We've got a wolf somewhere around Kentucky, West Virginia area. Swamp creatures down in Louisiana. So we have a lot of different cryptozoological stories here. I was wondering, is there anything that is Irish other than the mythology that is seen as
other than
very
this
real?
Well, in the modern sense, Dermot Butler and Carl Nally are two UFO researchers from Dublin, and they released a book within the last 2 years, and it was about a cover-up that was happening with a small farm ranch in the north of the island. And I was speaking to them on the phone, and I happened to ask, because I had come across a cow that showed signs of cattle mutilation, and this cow was within throwing distance of a fairy ring fort that I was investigating for activity. And they confirmed, yes, that is. They looked at the photographs. Yes, that is mutilation.
It's an answer to one of my questions.
That wasn't the case, and it was Carl happened to say to me, "Well, Barry, actually, we have 500 accounts of mutilations in our book." And I said, "Wow, 500 for Ireland itself, that's quite a very good number." And I said to him, "Wow, that's amazing for the island of Ireland." He says, "No, Barry, that's 500 in one farm." And that's what the book is based on. It's based on the cover-up from the Irish authorities into the British authorities and right into Brussels, and about how these people have been fighting to try and get answers as to what has been killing their livestock, and instead they were silenced. The farmers were silenced, And now we see the same trait happen in Wales and in England as well. It's more or less shut up or lose your money. And so the people, they have to stay quiet and bury the animals and say nothing.
Wow.
So we have that. So we have the mutilation still going on, and we have an island off the west coast of Ireland in which this unusual cryptid has been seen, around 8 foot tall. And this is a tidal island, so no one stays on the no one stays on the island, and you can go and camp there as long as you get the tides correct. And these people were on the island, and they had their encounter. So we've got UFOs, we've got strange kits and everything else, seen strange cryptids. These creatures that, for instance, one of them is around 8 foot tall with red eyes, and it's seen along a river in the north of the island. I got to see that one myself. Scared the bejesus out of me as well. For such a small island, we have a lot going on. And then there's the mythology and the folklore, of course, we've got that as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know. I'm a big Bigfoot guy. Everybody calls me Sasquatch because I'm 6'3" and I wear a size 15 shoe.
So, and he's hairy, despite not having any hair on his head.
Yeah, none up here, but everywhere else. Yeah.
You would think that everybody call me Sasquatch.
But I know in the U.S. there have been some suggestions in the U.S. that Bigfoot has been connected with some disappearances of people. We're not seeing that here. We don't have anything like that. We do have people who are listed as disappearing, but sadly they tend to end up in the black market and things like that, and they're usually teenagers of Asian descent, and they're taken, and God knows what the hell happens to them.
Yeah, like I said, I'm kind of a big cryptid guy myself. I love the stories behind them. I love the research behind them. It's so much fun. And I'm the kind of guy that's out in the woods all the time. I'm an avid fisherman and things like that. And we go out and look for mushrooms and things like that. So I'm always out in the woods. So it's one of those things where I've always wanted to have that cryptid experience. I haven't had it yet, but I keep hoping.
Well, I spoke to a contact of mine in Washington who does this as well, and he came face to face with it. Now he has a particular area that's secret. He doesn't. That when he came face to face with this thing, he said it is not what we think it is. He says this thing is it's completely different. And he said when it screamed at him, he ended up in bed for 2 days, ill. It took him right off his feet. He says these things are not what we think they are. They are not friendly in any ways and means. So I was intrigued by what he was saying and what was happening there. But
I've always felt with Bigfoot itself that there is an aspect, if it hasn't been found, that maybe it doesn't want to be. We keep going in and invading its space. We're going into its home and invading its space, and that's the case. But there's a lot of I'm also a big conspiracy theory guy, so there's a lot of conspiracy theory based around that. The fact that our government isn't going to allow Bigfoot to ever be discovered because it would upset the logging industry too much if it became a protected species.
Yeah.
So, and I always say with any good conspiracy, you follow the money.
Well, that's true. That is very true. Yeah.
Barry, what you were talking about earlier with this island, I remember a story that you were telling us a few weeks ago on the Petri dish. I don't remember the circumstances behind it, but the one thing that stood out to me was that every time somebody went in with any piece of equipment, it died. Do you remember that?
That was yeah. That was
Is this the same location?
Quarry. No. The quarry is a different place now. It's down in the center of the country, and I was working with my co-author on that investigation, and what we tend to do is try and inspire our youth back from behind the PlayStations and Xboxes and back into the countryside, and that's what the books were designed to do, because we give the GPS coordinates, we give the names of the people who need to be contacted for you to get permission to go onto the land and everything else, and we write about our experiences when we're there investigating those legends, and everything was going great. But there was one case in particular that we said we would never ever release the location for this because it was too dangerous. Originally, what tended to happen, you see, on top of this mountain, there were several houses, and the people were being pulled out of their beds at night, and it got to such violence that they abandoned the houses. They left. Now, eventually, the place was opened as a quarry. The new owner bought the quarry, and everything was great. But within days of moving in and breaking ground, that's whenever this strange phenomena began to happen, and it was really bizarre because they were bringing in new equipment that had been working fine up until it got into the quarry. And when they tried to start it in the quarry, it wasn't working. And they took it back out again, and it worked out on the road. So there seemed to be some type of field in the quarry that was stopping the machinery from working. Now, eventually they got the machinery working, and they broke more rock and everything else, and they started building office space in there, along with tool sheds and everything else. But the activity continued to ramp up, as with each building that was being placed in. And what really fired things off is that there was one guy, he was working on a saw. He was cutting some wood in the tool shed, and he was clubbed on the back of the head, and he fell forward, and it took the tops of the fingers off his hand where he fell forward, and he hand forward to stop falling and bleed, and it took the fingers off. But he never saw what it was that clubbed him. But others that were in the yard were able to see the movement of this particular person. It was a figure that moved from the tool shed in a straight line into the office block on the other side of the yard. No one ever saw its face. But when they gave chase, and they chased it into the office block, it was gone. There was never any trace of it. Now, above the office block, there was a bedroom was placed there for a security guard and truck driver. And this guy came from Italy, and he was very religious. He had a lot of religious iconography around the place. But whenever he left to go on his job, when he came back, even though the place had been locked, the doors would have been dragged off their hinges, and all the religious iconography would have been pummeled into powder. Now, the church were called in to deal with this, and every time the church came back to exorcise the place, it got worse and worse and worse, until it got to a point where the church said, look, we cannot do this any longer. We have come across something similar to this in Africa. We're urging you to step away from this. Close the place. Now, they didn't close the place. And the driver and the owner of the quarry decided they were going to bring in dogs. to try and defend themselves against this. And they brought in German shepherds, very vicious German shepherds, I must say, to compete against this, whoever this person was, as they were doing their deeds. And it actually murdered the dogs. The dogs were found dead on site. Wow. So the dogs seem to be a trigger for this phenomenon. And Cormac and I, we arrived up, and the owner had told us that when he was there, he would park the car in the middle of the quarry yard, and the headlights would come on, and the windows would go up and down of the car. There was electrical malfunctioning, very bizarre, very strange. And when Cormac and I drove up, I had Max in the back of the car. He's a huge, massive dog. He's a cross between a Dutch Shepherd and a Japanese Akita. And he goes everywhere with us during the investigation, because what tends to happen is that, especially in a dense forest, I will get lost. And I just turned to Max and I said, "Take me back." And he turns on his tail and off he goes, and I just follow him back down to the car, and everything's fine. So he's a great asset to us on location. But Cormac had to go down and leave the mountain for a period, and left myself and Max up at the quarry, and everyone else was gone at that stage. And I must say, when we had parked the car, I made sure and parked the car over the spot where this person was seen walking back and forward. I was driving a Saab at the time, a Saab station wagon, and there was frost on the ground, so it was cold. We were on top of the mountain, and when we got back to the car, the windows were all down. All the electric windows were down. And I said, "There's no way I would have driven up that mountain in frost with the windows down. It would have made no sense." And Cormac left and went down the side of the mountain. And I was left sitting by the fire, and I must say I was getting rather peckish at the time, and I cracked open the old picnic hamper and started eating, and nothing comes between me and my food, no matter who. It could be Dracula. Wait till I have my sandwich, and then we'll deal with this. And as I was preparing the food, that's whenever Max started to growl, and he started to just stare into the corner of the quarry. He was seeing something or sensing something that I couldn't pick up on. And then like all cliched horror movies, all I can say is it sounded like, you know, the nails that Freddy Krueger used to have, and he just scraped it down the wall. That's what it sounded like on the side of the tool shed. And Max was going mad at this particular stage. Whatever this thing was, it was annoyed that I was there, but it wasn't sure why I was there, because the quarry has long stopped operating, and the owner has said that he will never ever sell the quarry, because he will never ever let anyone experience what he has experienced. And it was just shortly after that then Cormac came back up. The headlights cast itself around the quarry yard, and whatever that thing was backed off and cleared off again. But that particular place it left an impact with us that we never ever did release the location of that place, and because of the natural threat to people when they went there, and it had a historical aspect to it. When we went and looked at the archaeological records for that area, what we tend to see is that mountains were very important to the Neolithic and the Iron Age people. But what we saw within the records is that these people had settled around the mountain, not on the mountain. So from thousands of years ago, someone knew something wasn't right with that place, and they left it alone. And only in the modern age have we come along and decided that we knew better, and started opening the ground and opening the quarry, and that's when all hell, literally, all hell broke loose.
This may sound reckless, but this actually is making me want to go there and investigate the area.
Which is why we didn't want to give you the coordinates.
It's just so interesting to hear something like this, because it's not normally something that you hear, a story like this.
Well, from our perspective, you see.
I'm sorry, my first thought was the land itself.
Yeah, very, very much so. It really is about the land. This thing is connected with the land. And what we tend to see is that we have pockets of areas around Ireland that we identify using satellites. We can see the pockets of areas where we're going to more likely get strange activity. And these satellites, they're easily accessed and everything else, and the data from them is easily accessed. And we can see that right across the world. We see pockets of where we tend to see heavier paranormal and ufological and crypto activity. But yes, the land has a big part to play in this, and the energies from the land itself. And we tend to see a lot of the areas, for instance, that when we go back and we look at the early aspects of the cult of the dead from a European perspective, these are pre-Viking traditions. So, and we're looking at before Christianity came to the island. These areas where we tend to find a lot of our stonework and everything else tended to be sacrificial. Now, the sacrifice could be animal, but there was also a case where there was also human. So we tended to see this crossover within certain areas of sacrifice that were happening, and we tend to see activity happening there associated with that. Now, bringing that into the modern age, when we go back and we look at the figures as well, we also tend to see that 7 out of 10 of the top suicide locations around the world also fall into these key areas. So it's like it's either something, the land itself is pulling these people in, or there is something there possibly pulling them in. It seems to attract this, and that's, I speak about this in my latest book there, The Deceptions of Gods and Men, where this phenomena, it doesn't stop at suicide. It really develops much further, and we start to see a bigger picture, and it's actually quite frightening whenever we see that bigger picture and how the sacrifice has increased beyond our imagination and into the modern age.
Absolutely. Yeah,
we live. Whatever this thing is could be either a crypto or an elemental.
Neither. And you see, those a lot of the terms that we tend to associate these particular beings, entities, energies, whatever you want to call them, they hide behind the mask. So when we call them by a particular name, that's a preloaded suggestion, and we get an impression of what these are. Whether I could say they're fairy, they're jinn, they're a cryptid, they're our little friendly grey, no such thing. But the little greys, they're all the same. The original. That's what we have to strip away the mask to identify what's going on behind. So even within beyond the veil, there are two sides at work, and these two sides, they have a conflict with each other, and it's unfortunate that we are caught in the middle. and that is it. It can really be a pain in the ass for us, because we're easily manipulated, and that is a serious problem for us as a species, about how easily we have become manipulated within this conflict.
Yeah, I've done a lot of research on our native people here, specifically the tribe that lived here in our area, and just going through and doing my research. I mean, we live an hour and a half away from a place called Mountain State Park. And there's an ancient ceremonial site there. I've always wanted to investigate it. I haven't yet. We also live an hour away from where a battle took place between the natives and the U.S. government. And the one thing, I have done some investigation there. And the one thing that I always found was funny, or actually to me, I found it disturbing, because the natives here, their ceremony was to be, their burial sites are near water. They live near water. The waterways were their main source of life. And so their burial sites were always near water. Well, the natives that were buried from the war were buried on a hilltop that's nowhere near water. They actually have a gravestone, a stone grave cemetery for the natives that had their names etched in it, which is very rare here. But the soldiers' graves are right next to the river. I was in the soldiers' cemetery, and I had my EVP recorder. And what did I catch on my EVP recorder? I catch native war drums on my EVP recorder in the soldiers' cemetery. Nothing from the soldiers. I got the natives there, because that was their livelihood. That was their life, their land. And I've always wondered about these ancient native sites and how they would hold that sort of energy from those ceremonies, from the ceremonial aspect. So I find that all very interesting, because of the ceremonial aspect being drawn to that area, especially the part about the suicide rate being higher in areas where sacrifices took place. You know, are the spirits influencing us? Like you said, we are easily manipulated as a people. That's obvious to anyone, especially in modern times. But are they able to manipulate us into having that depressive feeling to be able to continue those sacrifices?
No, the energies that are involved there do have a calling for people to those particular areas. And this is global. This is not just in one particular country. This is right around the planet. That 7 out of the top 10 suicide locations fall in these areas. That's not by chance. Now, when we go and we look, it's actually 75%. 75%. When we go and we look at, for instance, organizations, I have to be careful with my words here, organizations that it's their business to develop and manufacture weapons that ultimately will lead to a lot of loss of life and spilling of blood. 70% of them appear and are manufactured and are developed also in these areas.
Wow.
So I'll let people draw their own conclusions there, but spilling of blood has gone up through the roof.
Yes. And it's unfortunate all the way around. I mean, it's crazy to me that it's taken this long to bring some of that into the light.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that we don't, is in a time where people go through and try to erase history instead of looking at it for answers for the future. It amazes me that we don't make these ancient connections automatically sometimes, that so much has been forgotten throughout the years that we have forgotten where we came from, and it ultimately affects where we're going.
I've been tracking these particular beings now for quite some time. Ever since leaving GHI, I've been on a new path now, tracking these things down, tracking the locations where they happen, where they come through. I've had interactions with them, and I got to tell you that they're a right handful. They're not to be meddled with either. They have their ways. Now there are ways in which we can defend ourselves, going into situations where we know we're going to have interaction with these. But in a whole, the greater picture here is to understand that technology today, and this is something I spoke about earlier tonight, technology today is serving to lock us in the conscious brain. It keeps us locked into the conscious, and we do not listen to the subconscious. The voice of our instinct, the voice of our discernment lies within the subconscious. Now we are being robbed of that because of these. These are keeping us locked in our left-hand hemisphere. Everything that we do is designed to keep us locked in the left. We no longer hear the whisper of our instinct. And that is the true, forget any piece of equipment that we have, our instinct, our gift of discernment is the one piece of tool that will never ever let us down if we only know how to listen to it. Excuse me, as long as technology continues to develop the way it is, we will continually be locked out of that, and we won't be able to connect back to that seat of our instinct.
I absolutely agree. I have one. It's a cheap one. I turn it off regularly.
Yes, he does, because he's one of the hardest people to get a hold of during the day.
I do. I
don't
turn
get
it
me wrong.
off because,
yeah. I have to contact Crystal to be able to get a hold of him sometimes.
That's because I'm one of those people that falls in that category that it's stuck to my hand.
Don't get me wrong. Technology is great. It has its uses. But when it becomes so submersive that we don't even lift our eyes from the technology to see what's going on around us, that's a problem. We really are becoming brainwashed by this stuff.
I'm also a big believer in the more we use this to speak and the more we use this to think,
oh, here comes Ghost.
The more
that's my cat, Ghost.
Yeah, that's Ghost, our cat. He's a
he has to make an appearance on every show.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a big believer in the fact that, and to me, it's a fact. The more we use this to communicate, and the less this, the more we lose intimacy.
Yes.
And true intimacy. And I believe it in all truth and honesty, it really does add to the depression of our times, because we're meant to be intimate creatures and have that interaction, that sociability.
But the plus side is it does enable us to stay in touch with people who live far away from us.
It has its advantages, don't get me wrong, but it's got its disadvantages.
It does, yeah.
It's yin-yang. It's everything in life. You have good, you have evil, and it always has to balance.
In some way.
Thing. Yeah.
And that's
But
why
the thing is, Jeremy, now we're in a situation now where when we go out to investigate the paranormal, for instance, we've got so many flashy lights and little pieces of equipment here, there, and everywhere, dotted all around the place. We're continually watching the equipment because it's locking our conscious brain. And we're not actually feeling the environment anymore because we're watching the equipment that's not designed to do what we do. We have the gift of discernment, not the equipment. The equipment are the distraction. And that by attaining that gift of discernment again, being able to listen to that exceptionally quiet voice, we have that ability to connect back to something that we have lost contact with for an exceptionally long time.
See, that's where I'm at a disadvantage from that point because I'm very, very hard of hearing. So when it comes to listening, I don't do so well.
You don't have to listen.
I don't think he means hearing with your ears.
No, it's your internal.
He's talking about listening to your internal
it's
body.
Your internal.
Oh,
yes.
That I'm pretty bad.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example, Jeremy. When we select a series of photographs that are of kitty cats, of children laughing, and really nice things that make us feel good, and a person is linked to a biofeedback device, we tend to see that when as the experiment continues and it just recycles over time, the person's skin resistance lowers because we like what we see. But everything is stimulated through the eyes. We like what we see, so our skin resistance lowers, and we can measure that. But the moment that a car accident, a very graphic car accident, is thrown in there and selected by the computer, not by anyone else, by the computer, suddenly when the person sees that, the body's skin resistance rises. Okay, so the body's reacting to the stimulus it doesn't like. Now this is where it gets interesting, because when the experiment continues, over a period of time, what we saw is that milliseconds before the computer selected the photograph to show the person, their skin resistance started to rise. The person was starting to detect what was coming. So that in itself is a reflection on what the capabilities of the human body. The fact that it's picking up signals that has not yet even happened is processed through the largest organ in the body, which is our skin. And that in itself is now broken down. I suspect that there are several things at play here, which also connects us back to the soul, and how the body and the soul operate together. And that to me has been an exceptional thing to understand. Now, when you walk into an environment in which something's not quite right, now real estate agents, for instance, understand that 75% of houses are sold on feeling. What is that feeling? We walk into a house and we go, oh, I like this. This is nice. Even though there's nothing visually to stimulate it, you just like the feeling. It's really nice here. Or you walk in and you go, no, I don't like this. That something's not right here. That is your body working with your soul, because your soul recognizes there is another soul here. And that soul can be dangerous. So it's warning you. It's telling you, no, don't. And the hair goes up in the back of your neck. The body works in unison with the soul, and the spirit works in unison with the soul and the body. So you've got the three things going on there, and they work wonderfully together. Now, when you arrive at the situation where you have multiple souls that are outside baying to get inside, that creates an awful turmoil within the body itself, and especially for those kids the teenagers that start suffering things there as well. Multiple voices and everything else. Now we can sit here and debate to the cows come home about schizophrenia and things like that. But it is remarkable to see that the drugs themselves don't cure the problem, and that in itself causes a situation. And in Europe, what we find now, we have treatments that are happening in Europe in which we're working with the voices without the drugs, and the people are coming out the other side perfectly normal. And I think that is a wonderful thing that I can see a change in the treatment of this and how it's going around. But yeah, this aspect of soul, spirit, and body working together is a remarkable tool. And the gift of discernment, once you harness that gift of discernment, doesn't matter what that thing appears in front of you, whether it be a little girl or whether it be an old lady or whatever the case may be, you will know whether it's right or not. And the moment that you detect it as being wrong, it's gone. It will not sit around and be pulled apart.
Yeah, it's very Fitzgerald day on the Paranormal United Network, guys.
It is.
Well,
We're loving it because I'm loving this conversation because I'm a big believer in the inner workings in body, mind, and soul. I believe that the ancients had knowledge of things that we lost through the years and can't understand. A great example of that is a book called the Zohar. It was a book of ancient Jewish mysticism. It lays out superstring theory in it, 5,000 years BC, and we didn't discover superstring theory until 1927, somewhere in there, before science caught up to what the ancients already knew. So,
huge amount.
You go ahead.
There's a huge amount. There's a huge amount of things that we did know that was later then taken from the lay person and kept for the priestly orders. Manna being a perfect example of that. The showbread of the Israelites was a perfect example in which you could take this and connect to what they believed to be gone, and that in itself then was taken eventually, and the priestly order took that, and then it disappeared completely. We do have symbols, of course, within Christianity of manna and stuff like that, but it disappeared completely, and it's a highly coveted secret of what manna actually was and what it's made up to be.
Absolutely. I mean, I've studied this quite a bit because I always say the Dark Ages are called the Dark Ages for a reason. And it's because people reverted to the best word I can really use for it is subservient mindset. Where sorry, my dog's going crazy. Somebody's walking through the front door. But
that would be Max.
Yeah, Max is he's our youngest dog. He's a year old now, and he likes to go nuts and bark at everything.
Yeah.
But I think that we resorted to just doing what we were, or believing in what we were told to believe in without ever questioning or challenging. Because for a lot of years there, anybody who questioned or challenged was burned at the stake or tortured or.
Yeah.
So there's a belief out there, and it's funny because these books come out like the Da Vinci Code. And I read it, and my favorite line from the Da Vinci Code is, why couldn't Jesus have been married and still be able to be who he said he was? Why does there have to be a distinction between one or the other? And what I came to realize in my own life is I'm not going to let others influence my personal relationship with my spirituality, and that I'm not going to put limitations on it. And that's where I am now. And I think that we've through those limitations and through people saying, okay, this is that, it's cut and dry, whatever, that we've really harmed ourselves in ways that that's going to take a long time to recover.
You see, for us here on the island, when Christianity came to the island, it came to the island with virtually nothing. It had nothing to offer us. And it came to an island where there were already gods and deities already here. But it was a remarkable thing because it was a conversion that was relatively bloodless. And we converted over okay. But there was, at the beginning, Christianity, it was a different form of Christianity. It was Celtic Christianity. And that was not under the doctrine of Rome. So that in itself, when we consider that Celtic Christianity was very, very different up until the 8th century, we were keeping all the secrets. We were keeping the secrets of the Druids because the people who were converting were Druids, and the Druids' information was being written down, and all those secrets were being kept. Then in the 8th century, then Rome rolled in to Ireland and Scotland and things like that, and they said no more, and all the secrets were taken back to Rome, and that was unfortunate, and that's where this real controlling structure came from. And you're right, if you decided that you were against the church, then
another glitch. Oh, welcome back, Barry.
Every once in a while we get a little glitch in the internet.
Yeah. Well, it's understandable being that he's several thousand miles away from us. So
that's true.
Yeah.
It's the 13th dimension.
I wanted to ask you something. So you've been able to spend a decent amount of time here in the States doing investigations and everything like that. So and you're always looking for fun things to do in between these investigations. What would be some of your favorite memories that you made over here during that time?
Okay. Wow. Yeah, there was one memory. There was one memory that does stick out. You see, I always wanted to hire a big Cadillac at the airport, and every time I flew into the US, they always said, "Oh, well, we don't have that Cadillac anymore. We have to give you an alternative." And I would have ended up in a Chrysler little roadster thing, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted to experience the American Cadillac. And one time I got the Cadillac in California, and I drove it everywhere. I loved that car. And it was just a huge bath. But the GPS system, what I found out in the Cadillac, the GPS system would read out where you were arriving. So it would say, you have arrived at 15 Talbot Street. And I thought to myself, wait a minute. Could I alter what that GPS is going to say? So I did. And I put in the search parameters, and I called it something else. So by the time I was finished, I was driving all over California, and I was driving at people's houses, and it was called the Bunny Ranch, Jimmy the Snitch, the Body in the Desert, all these GPS coordinates that were appearing. I forgot to clear the GPS whenever I took the car back. So it looked like the car had been hired by the mob.
So the next customer had a very interesting drive. Wow.
Oh, dear, I can laugh now. Well, of course, I'm back in Ireland now, so I can laugh.
Yeah.
One place I do distinctly remember, though, was the American Stonehenge. I think it's up in Massachusetts, I think, if memory serves me right. And I was there in winter, and it was still open, and I went in to have a look around. I didn't know anything really about this place, and I just wanted to see it. And I went in and walked around the stones and everything else, and an intriguing, very intriguing place. But what I couldn't shift was that I was being watched. And especially from the edge of the property, I felt like I was being watched. I couldn't shift that sense, that feeling. Then I went about my business and all the rest, and then I suddenly became aware that, wait a minute, why am I not hearing birds in here? Why am I not hearing wildlife? There are wildlife outside. Why am I not hearing it here? And not only that, but I also happened to notice that the nuts that had fallen from the trees over autumn were still lying on the ground. The animals didn't come in and take the nuts off the ground. And I thought that was very weird at that particular place. So that was always a place I would have loved to have gone back to. But as time was just against it, I was never able to return there. It was a once-off for me. But definitely, I would love to know more if anyone else had unusual experiences at that place.
I have not been there, but that's definitely seems unique to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That you wouldn't see or have wildlife near something like that.
Mm-hmm. There should be no reason. The animals shouldn't be affected, and in the great scheme of things, they should be just in and out of it, no problem. Squirrels should be down eating the nuts and gathering them and all the rest. Nothing. They never touched a thing.
That's
odd,
interesting.
very odd.
Jeremy road trip.
Some of the some of the places that the lights and things that are seen out in just outside Vegas and stuff like Phoenix, Arizona. I captured those before, and I was mesmerized by those. Slightly creeped out by them. These strange lights in the sky, I just couldn't figure them out. And never mind the fact that they waited until I put my foot on the ground before they appeared. And I thought, wait a minute, were they waiting on me to get here? It was very bizarre, very, very, very strange indeed. And I was at Skinwalker Ranch there in October 2019, just before the whole lockdown, the world locked itself down, and I had remarkable experiences out there as well. I was fascinated by what was going on there, and so it's now we're just getting back into it again, and I'm diligently taking notes and writing this next book, The Fruit of the Gods, and seeing what can happen, because I don't think I'll be leaving the island anytime soon.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's been the case with everybody. We like to joke like we're rich enough to take a world tour, but we haven't gotten there yet. But no,
we're a long way from that.
Yeah.
But we're building a list. That's what we're doing. We're building a list in the meantime.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to do that.
I find the more guests I interview, the more places I want to go, the more things I want to do, the more stuff I want to read about and learn about.
Mm-hmm.
So I this is my favorite part of doing these podcasts is you get to hear different perspectives, different people, and you get to find new things to go and experience yourself. And I love the story about the Cadillac because my uncle had an old 76 bicentennial edition Cadillac Eldorado convertible. It was one of 5,000 ever made, and it was gorgeous. It only had like 20,000 miles on it. But that's what Crystal and I drove away from in our wedding. We rode away from our wedding in his convertible Cadillac. big as a house, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
the GPS one, that's classic.
Oh yeah. Thought you were a gangster. No,
that's that.
Like I said, from a historical point of view, this stuff is all fascinating to me because I get behind the idea of us losing so much, and then the more I read, the more I learn, the more I find out it's not so much that we lost it, but that it was repressed from us. And then you go to these places, for instance, we were just at Waverly not so long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And
for 2 nighs.
Yeah, we were there for 2 nights, and the Waverly Hills Sanatorium there in Louisville, Kentucky. And the second night, I had an experience I couldn't explain. In the back of my head, felt like it was going to explode, and I knew I had to get out of the situation. So we were actually on a live video at the time, and I just handed it to Crystal. I was like, "Here you go," and I walked out of there. But I was the only one in that area that was feeling that way at the time. So I wanted to get back to the topic of our instincts and using them more in the paranormal field, because so many of us have become reliant on technology.
This is the best instrument anybody can have.
Yep.
There you go. Yeah.
And what's it cost?
Sure said.
Upkeep of your body, you're going to do it anyways. Let's be real. You're going to eat, you're going to sleep, you're going to do all that stuff anyway. So it's basically free.
Yep.
I shall tot up a year's shopping from my wife and see how much it costs.
Don't let him start. Don't let him. No.
But I was up in Alaska, and I had come in on a cruise ship up there, and everything was going grand. But the night before, I had this terrible nightmare, and it was to stay away from the high peaks because that's their place. And I thought, what the hell is that about? And I didn't know where we were docking. The next morning, we docked, and I went up onto the top of the ship and went, wow, look at these mountains around the place. And then I remembered the dream, stay away from the high peaks. It's theirs. And I found out then that some people had disappeared in the high peaks. Yep. But when we were down at it was just this little ghost a tour of this town. I think it was called Spokane. We had this little ghost tour, and everything was grand. We ended up at this old I think it was a courthouse, or it was a school. I can't remember which one it was now, but there were trees immediately behind it. And I got this real strong sense that we were being watched, and every now and again I was turning and looking at the tree line, wondering what it was that I was picking up on, but I couldn't see anything. And then suddenly I got this warm sensation around my elbow. And I thought, wow, what is that about? And I left, and I ended up walking back to the cruise ship and threw the jacket off. And by the time I got back to the room, and brought the elbow up right around here was a full set of teeth had been bitten on the elbow, and I just said to myself, "Now, you've got me that time, but you'll not get me the second time. Get this ship out of here." Even the best of us can get caught.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite scenes that I recall seeing you in, I want to say it was at the Hellfire Caves, and this was when Grant was hiding in a corner or hiding somewhere to come out and get you, and you come out.
Yes, you're
and all Grant did was just stand up, or I forget what he did, but the flashlight that you were carrying just went in all different directions.
You're jogging my gray matter now, and I do start to recall that. And you see, for me, the problem is that when I'm using that gift of discernment, I'm putting so much out there. It's like tapping out the environment that you're in. Yeah. And you're tapping out everything that's meant. You're looking for this spiritual soul aspect thing that you're trying to tap the environment out for. When there's something else there physically that you're not expecting, the snapback that you get is tremendous, and I will scream better than any woman. And I could tell you this: I was in Argentina, and Joe Chin was with me, and Miss Ashley. I think it was Miss Ashley, and they had this dark room, and the walls were painted black, but the only thing that they had were these pictures. There were Victorian pictures of dead children. The ones that were propped up and looked like they were still alive. Well, they were obviously dead. And I was going around this dark, very, very dark room with a little pen light, looking at these photographs, and thinking to myself, "Wow, that's actually quite morbid." And making my way around. But Joe and Miss Ashley had copped a little tiny child mannequin in the corner. I never saw it. And it was only whenever I turned to go to turn to look at the other walls that my flashlight just caught the face of this little mannequin standing in the corner. Well, I can tell you this: I screamed better than anyone in that town. I do not like mannequins in an investigation. They should not be there. And that in itself is why, because you're putting so much out that whenever it snaps back, the reaction is much, much more. And I hate it. Absolutely hate it.
It sounds like Scott.
Yes, we like to play. Well, when we're on investigations, ultimately we're very serious while we're on investigation, but we love to play little pranks on each other.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, Scott normally gets me, but I'm watching you, buddy. I'm getting you. You wait.
Yeah.
No, we were at the Crown Point jail, and Scott snuck into one of the cells behind Crystal. She didn't see him go in there because he's such a small.
I've seen him come in, but I thought he just went in and around us because I was talking to somebody else. No, he didn't.
And he came out from behind the cell, from an empty jail cell, and grabbed her around the waist, and you would have thought somebody lit a bottle rocket underneath her because she just straight up.
Yeah, Sydney the Clown. We like to torture Howard.
I can remember
another member of our team. His name is also Scott. He got me real good on an investigation. He'd been trying to get me for the last 4 years. And he got me good about a year and a half ago. And we were down in the basement, and everything was carpeted, the steps, everything. So he was able to sneak down there without me hearing. and found out the hard way why everybody calls him Ninja. So he's so stealthy. He just came up behind me and just grabbed me from the side. And I jumped about 20 feet.
I can remember being in a French it was a French chateau, and Joe Chin and Scott Tepperman were investigating as well. But we had already prepped Scott Tepperman. Everyone was in on it. That he, while in the basement of the French chateau, be very, very careful for the French rattler. Apparently, once you're bitten by the French rattler, you get 2 steps and you're dead. That's it. We wouldn't even get you out of the place to get you to the hospital. You'll be dead. So that was it. And Scott and Joe ended up going down way, way, way underneath the French chateau. And as they came back up again, and they were about to hit the spiral staircase, well, I was under the spiral staircase with a baby rattle. And I just went rattle, rattle. Boy, that Scott can move.
Oh, boy.
I could not catch him.
That would have. She would have never gone in the basement to begin with because she's terrified of snakes.
Oh, we did have laughs. There was one investigation that we were on in the Ukraine, and it was a huge, big mansion of a place. But apparently the Nazis had used it. There was a legend that the Nazis had used it as a hospital, a field hospital, where they conducted some unusual experiments. But whenever we were in the basement, I was working away, and knowing the natural thickness of castle walls from Europe here, something still wasn't adding up. It seemed that there was a shortage in the length of the basement. Right. And we teamed up with the guys upstairs, and we marched out and measured out the length of the basement. And the basement was short something like 23 feet. And I said, no, there's a secret room in here. And whenever we brought this to the guy that run the place, he was absolutely thrilled. And whenever we were leaving, we were heading across, and I always felt that we should have stayed to see what was inside, because as we were leaving and heading across the border into Poland, this guy had a sledgehammer and was knocking the wall down into this secret room that they never knew was there. But however, the problem being that the floor level on the inside was different than the floor level in the secret room. So whenever he stepped through and jumped, expecting to land on the same floor level, he went further and ended up breaking his leg. By which stage we were already heading across into Poland. So we never found out if there was any medical assistance on the other side. But so strange little things that were happening when the cameras were switched off. It was there was, in fact, I would say that there was a lot more interesting things happen when the cameras were off than when they were actually on.
That seems to be a normal.
Yeah, I tend to catch a lot more personal experiences than I do on camera.
Yeah. I was speaking to Nick about this actually earlier tonight, because there was a case I was working on, and these things appeared. These physical people manifestations appeared, but when I held the camera up and looked through the viewfinder, although I was physically seeing 2, the camera only seen 1, and that showed me something very clearly, in that although they link to me through the conscious brain, they can show me what they want me to see, or what they want me to see, but they can't lie to the camera, which is why they refuse to be photographed or filmed. Yep. Because we see them for what they are. and they can't confuse us. And so that was a real good acknowledgement of understanding what the camera does and why they don't want us to use technology, in particular the camera, to capture them.
It makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
We got a question here for you.
Sure.
What got you into the paranormal?
Curiosity, natural curiosity. I'm a big fan of John A. Keel, God rest his soul, and I was always an avid admirer of his work, and John certainly was fundamental there, in me going out and doing what I do. My father, I think he was another one, in that particular haunted house that I grew up in. My dad would have set me down in front of the TV to watch Doctor Who and Star Trek, the old Captain Kirk, and I think that in itself was a way of keeping us quiet. It got the children to shut the hell up for a while as we watched the new color TV. But I definitely think my dad got me really interested in the whole sci-fi genre and everything else, and led me to question what was around us and everything else. And Doctor Who was always good, but the Daleks scared the absolute bejesus out of me. And I can remember I was only starting to read at that particular time in school. And I was looking down the listings of every night. I would come home and look down the listings of the newspaper to see if Doctor Who was on. And because I couldn't read it properly, I mixed up Doctor Who with Doctor Hook, the singer from the 1970s. And every time I sat down to watch this Doctor Hook come on, well, the hatred I developed for that man, it was absolutely serious. Because I couldn't read, I always mixed up Doctor Who and Doctor Hook. So there we go.
Okay.
We're all just sitting here quiet.
Yeah, no, my mind is fried.
Doctor Who was one of my favorite shows growing up too. I always enjoyed Doctor Who. Jeremy's more the Star Trek guy. I'm a Star Wars guy, so.
Star Trek.
Oh, well, my condolences. My condolences.
You're really going to want to give me condolences because I don't do any of it.
She's terrified of aliens.
Why
I like ghosts, but I don't like aliens.
See, I've actually never watched Doctor Who. Not one single episode of any of the series they've had.
You would
look at Barry's face. You're done, Jeremy. He's just like from here.
Not impressed. Not impressed. Not impressed at all.
He's like, you were cool before this. Now we're not friends. Just get out. Get out.
No.
Jenny has another question. She wants to know if you've ever been to the Lep Castle, and if so, what did you think of it?
We know he's been to Lep Castle because he was on.
Well, Jenny's asking. I'm asking for Jenny.
Sean Ryan, the owner of Lep Castle, is a personal friend of mine, and I know Lep Castle very well, and I also know what's in it. And Lep Castle has a long history of haunting. A lot of blood has fell within those walls. A lot of cruelty. But Sean, whenever Sean started to renovate the place, he brought music into the castle. And Sean is a renowned musician. His daughter is a fantastic Irish dancer, and she even danced for the Japanese emperor. They have a long lineage, and what we tend to find is that when people go in to investigate Lep Castle and they start stirring up the dust and things start happening, Sean brings music to the scene, and the music settles the atmosphere again. And it was interesting, I came across some work there recently of a particular researcher who said that there are certain pieces of classical music, when played, can destroy attachments, spiritual attachments on people. And it's about the vibration and the frequency of the vibration that is said to help. And certainly Sean Ryan is no different. I have sets in that castle, and we were talking about the weight of school bags of all things, and about how children, it's going to destroy their backs with the weight of the books that they're carrying. And suddenly, Charlotte, who had fallen from the parapet, just across the top of our voices, just said, "Emily," and Emily was her sister. That all the conversation just suddenly stopped. Then we were having no conversation whatsoever about ghosts. It was normal, mundane stuff, and that happened. Now the elemental in Lep, of course, is a totally different character altogether, and I find the elemental is like an old dog. It's best not to go and poke it with a stick, otherwise it'll kick your ass. And so everything else is up for points and prizes, but the elemental is best to leave it well enough alone.
Yeah, Jenny loves Lep Castle, so I'm not surprised that she asked. Mm-hmm. She talks about it quite often.
Yeah. Yes, she does. She's going back there in August.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was one of my favorite bits of from the old Ghost Hunter show was when they went with you to Lep, and you got those little heat signatures on the thermal.
That was
Lachine. That was Lachine, which is here in Sligo.
Yeah.
And it's off on the coast. I can remember whenever Wheezy was about to push the power plug into the adapters, and I said to him, "Are you sure that you have adapted your tech to our voltages, because we run on 220 and you guys run on 110? Are you sure you've got everything set?" Yeah, everything's fine. And he pushed it in, and suddenly, boom, and all the fuses blew, and the castle went into complete darkness. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and I said, "Now you're in its territory."
Right?
Yeah. It took us a while to get those fixed.
I bet. Some people just don't learn.
Boy, ain't that the truth.
Lep Castle was the type of place. Lep Castle was the type of place that when the English landlords lived in the place, things started to get heated in Ireland, and the English landlords were out of the country at the time when the guys came to liberate the castle and all the furniture in it. And it was customary back in the day that if someone come to your door, you give them a bed for the night and something to eat. So the knock come to the door, the butler stuck his head out the window, and it was the guys had come to burn the castle from the English landlords. And the butler pleaded with the guys that they would allow him to get some of the furniture out, which they did, and they subsequently set fire to both wings, the 19th century extensions on the 12th century tower. So it burned, and all was left was the shell. But the next night they decided to come back because the main tower never burned. Because its walls are massively thick, and the flames couldn't do any problem or no destruction there. So they came back with TNT, and they were planning on going into the basement and setting the dynamite and blowing it to hell. But didn't the guys, whenever they went into the basement to find the wine, and they got so drunk that they were afraid to light the TNT in case they blew themselves up. And that's why the tower is still here today, because they got drunk.
Well, I would say something, but well, you know what? I'll just say it. I was going to say, leave it to the Irish to get their drink on.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We do have one more question. Have you been to Wicklow Jail?
Yes, I have indeed. We filmed. I believe we filmed an episode at Wicklow Jail, and I was also there with. Oh my goodness, I can't remember his name. He was in our competition, the English competition, Most Haunted. But I was there at the jail with him as well. I can't remember his name though. But yes, I've been to the jail several times, and it's a grand place. I like the solitary at the back of the jail, very nice, and they've made a really nice reconstruction of what it's like inside one of the coffin ships that headed to the United States. It's in the jail as well. I usually don't like jails. I prefer to stay away from them because I don't like people being interred and all the rest, and I don't like the celebration that goes on around it. So I tend to stay away from them. But because we were filming there, of course I ended up having to go. And we also did Alcatraz also in California.
That's on my bucket list. I've never been to Alcatraz.
Yeah, Alcatraz is nice. I could never understand though. Whenever we were in Alcatraz, we were filming, and the authorities there, the park service, said that we couldn't pour the water onto the ground. I'm thinking, what do you do with rain? The rain's going to be running down the walls. Is the place going to fall apart? But it was always one that I always thought was very odd. It was a very odd restriction. You can't pour the water out of your water bottle. That's odd. Very odd. But there you go. Such is life.
Well, we're getting close to wrap-up time here.
Yeah, we are. Unfortunately, it's just about that time.
Yeah. And it is unfortunate because I'm absolutely loving this conversation.
I am too. I'm just listening. I'm just staying quiet and listening to these stories.
Right.
It's not very much that you two are rendered speechless.
Yeah, it takes a lot to render me speechless, especially.
Yeah. It's sometimes
you've been a huge pleasure, Barry.
Absolutely.
Anytime.
Oh, thank you.
You are always welcome back.
And always welcome to contact us.
And when I make it to Ireland, I will be looking you up.
Well,
we're going to have to get a pint.
I should be here. I should be here. And if I could just highlight the website where people can grab some of my books. It's charmstealer.com. So that's charmstealer.com. And folks can have a look and see what's going on as well. And the new books will be coming out through there as well.
Awesome. There we go. Well, instead of Comic-Con, it's .com.
Yeah, it's.
Oh, that's Charms Dealer. Charms Stealer. Charms Stealer.
Okay.
Yes. There we go.
There we go. Does that look better?
Okay.
That's it.
So anybody out there that would like to check out his website, there you go.
Absolutely.
You can get some books.
Yeah,
I'm going to be checking it out. I'm going to tell you that now.
Yeah, books are something we have a lot of in our house.
Oh, wait a minute.
Okay, we got one final question. This is actually a guy that I used to work with. a few years back. He's asking, what is the best place you've been to?
There'll be several places. I think for me, being in Belize, in the Mayan underworld, was a remarkable experience, and also being able to at night climb on top of one of the Maya pyramids and lie there looking at the stars as they did, and then watching this moon, the moon rise above the jungle canopy. It was just one of those moments in time that that you'll never ever get to experience again. And in regards to paranormal, I've had many experiences in there, and there's from the island of the dead, of course, in Ireland, and even there was a great case in Transylvania, Rajanov, I think it was Rajanov fortress, and
You just said
it was there. It was there that we addressed the spirit, the soul in Romanian, and it responded. I spoke to it in English, in German, and in Romanian, and it didn't understand the German or the English because it said "Pufti." In other words, excuse me, say that again. It spoke to me in Romanian, and so it showed me that we needed to adapt some techniques within the native language, and that worked wonderfully well for us.
That's awesome.
That is absolutely. I'm kind of the resident Vlad guy, so
he is. He is.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, it is time to close our show.
All right, folks.
Yeah, I'm sure Barry's ready to go to bed, but I mean, we can do this all night.
Definitely appreciate you staying up this late.
Yes, thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much for being our guest and for being on our show. We've had an absolute joy.
Yeah, and we would love to have you back on sometime.
Absolutely.
Well, you know where I am. I don't think I'm going anywhere. So.
Yep. Now that I finally know how to get a hold of you this time. So. Okay, so.
I've even gone the entire show without saying my catchphrase, Jeremy.
Without no corporate sponsor.
We have a gimmick on this show. Scotty has his chicken nuggets, Tim has his saying, and I have my Slim Jims.
Yeah, I always hold up my my Diet Pepsi and say, "We bow to no corporate sponsors."
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's been such a pleasure talking with you tonight. It really has been. And for those of you who have joined us throughout the show, thank you so much for watching and supporting us, and for supporting Barry as well. And definitely go check out his website.
Yes, go check out the site, buy a book or two, then go back and buy some more.
Okay. So
all right, folks. Take care.
Next week.
You as well.
Next week, our guests are Howard Petrie and Carl Johnson.
And we'll be talking about demonology.
Yep. That's going to be a good one.
You can get a hold of Carl.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that one. So remember, if it's paranormal or beyond,
we got it covered.
Hi, guys.
All right, folks. Take care. Bye.
Oh, I don't even know if they...